I've always wondered why we're so keen to leave this world. Why do we want to see other planets, other places in the universe when what we have around us is so absolutely intoxicating? It's my life's goal to explore as much as possible, to continue falling in love with every nook and cranny of this planet, and to tell stories that compel people to care. But to do all of that, I have to have my kit. So going into 2025, what is it that will allow me to successfully capture the world as I experience it? What will I bring into 2025 as my primary landscape and adventure photography kit? With the full and total belief that this year will be the most taxing, challenging, and exciting year of my life. I firmly believe that I'll have more opportunities to shoot in precarious positions than I ever have, and I'm quite excited to explore that reality. So it's imperative that the kit I put together is capable of keeping up with any scenario, whether it's in the freezing cold, the aching heat, or any kind of environment where dust, snow, water is in the air. I just need this kit to be reliable, no matter what. Now, what that means is a few different things. My camera has to be resilient, and it has to be able to do everything such that I don't need to change cameras. My lenses need to be pared down to as simple of a kit as possible so that I'm not changing them very often, and such that in most environments I can bring only one or two lenses. And everything needs to be as weight conscious as I can manage. Now, I want to add an asterisk here because, quite frankly, I don't put as much value on weight savings as some other landscape and adventure photographers might. One of my favorite photographers I've ever looked up to was shooting with a 1DX Mark III while climbing all over the mountains in Chamonix, and I guess that imprinted on me when I was young because I just feel like if there's somewhere I'm not going to compromise on weight, it's going to be my camera gear. But I still want my kit to be compact if possible. Lastly, weather sealing. Everything has to withstand the elements as best as possible because usually I don't have the space to bring two cameras and I need my cameras to not fail. The same goes for my lenses. I can't always be redundant. This isn't wedding photography, right? This is climbing mountains. This is spending weeks in the backcountry. This is chasing wildlife. So my kit needs to just work and it needs to keep working. So where better to start than with my camera of choice for the year? It's the same camera I carried all through this last year, and it is my favorite camera ever made. A camera I firmly believe still dominates the camera marketplace, the Nikon Z8. This is a camera that really has no compromises, and the biggest fault I can think to give it is its weight and size. It's a camera that has the resolution and the low light ability to perform in every scenario. Its dynamic range allows me to avoid things like stacking images or trying to create HDR profiles in order to bring out the highlights or the shadows. I can do it all in a single frame. With an IBIS that allows me to shoot down to half a second, I can bring up the aperture towards f16 and compress entire scenes together such that sharpness is maintained throughout the whole frame. It's a camera that allows me to shoot video at a professional level, a camera that allows me to bring it into all environments because I know it will survive. I have tested it, and it's a camera that is growing with time. Firmware updates and considerations by the team at Nikon have made this camera defined by a longevity that other cameras simply can't claim. It's a beautiful, beautiful tool, and I look forward to using it throughout the year. Then we have the lenses, and this is where things get quite interesting because things have changed recently. One thing certainly has not, and that is my favorite lens for this system. It's the 17 to 28mm f2.8, and it's by far the lens I have used more than any other in my entire photography career. I've made more images I'm proud of with this lens than any other, and I don't suspect that will change. So this will be my one do everything, never leave it at home lens for storytelling, adventure photography, and landscape photography. You will not find me without this lens. But the change has come after that, because I've talked a lot about one specific lens that I like quite a lot, the 24 to 120 millimeter f4. It's a beautiful, beautiful lens, absolutely stunning, and it does so much so well, but I've recently found myself less interested in using it. Partially because I have the Fujifilm version, and I often use that for video and have the Fujifilm if I'm not on long trails, but when I'm just bringing the Nikon, I just haven't found myself bringing the 24 to 120 anymore. Now I have replaced it, and I've replaced it with the Tamron 35 to 150 f2 to 2.8, a beast of a lens, but an absolutely remarkable feat of engineering. It replaces the 24 to 120 millimeter range for me, while also allowing me to capture so much more light than I could. At f2 to 2.8, I can be shooting very, very early and very, very late in the day in a way that f4 often is challenging to work with. Not only that, but it's also allowed me to get rid of my 70 to 200. The 35 to 150 range is close enough to the 70 to 200 that I don't feel the need to carry that lens anymore, thus making the weight of the 35 to 150 feel much more acceptable. Especially when paired with the Nikon Z8, I'm able to use the crop mode and reach 225 millimeters without feeling like I'm losing any notable amount of quality. I frequently crop heavily on my images, and I would venture to guess you guys would never notice. It's still something around 19 to 24 megapixels even after the crop, and I am happy with that. That's plenty for me when I need that extra length. So the 35 to 150 is my new do-everything lens, and I fully suspect it will come with me on most adventures. Now, one little surprise entrant is a lens that won't come with me all the time, but this is a lens that has kind of inspired me to be more creative, and in landscape photography, I think that goes a long ways. For a long time, I liked bringing along a 135 f2 or a 135 f1.8, and that was a really fun creative lens, but I found myself hesitating to shoot at that length because it was precise and it was often too long. So I've been using the 75mm f2 from TT Artisan, and that's an excellent lens. And it's gonna be my creative lens of the year, I suspect. It's a lot of fun, and I encourage people to check it out. Now finally, the very last lens, and I know this seems like a lot, but this won't be with me all the time. This is another somewhat niche lens that I'll only bring out in a few specific scenarios. This is a 14mm 2.8 from Pergear, and I am quite excited to start testing this thing. Now, I haven't used it much, so I'm not going to speak to the quality of this specific lens, but I had already decided I needed a 14mm for this year, because when it comes to aurora scenarios, which I've been shooting more of recently, and when it comes to hyper wide scenarios like in caves or forests where I like to bring in as much of the environment as possible, the 17mm wide side of the 17 to 28 has been just not quite enough. So this 14mm 2.8 will become my new go-to astro lens and my new ultra wide when I know there are scenarios that will demand it. So that's it for my kit. It's going to be the 17 to 28, the 35 to 150, the 75mm when I know I want to get creative, and the 14mm when I know astrophotography will be involved. That sounds like a lot, but more than likely, the only two that will always be in the bag are the 17 to 28 and the 35 to 150. I need to pause to quickly mention that I just released my ebook, An Introduction to Photographic Storytelling, and I am so excited. Nearly 200 of you have joined my newsletter knowing that I'm offering a discount on the book, and it's finally available to you all. If you sign up for my newsletter, it's available for $10. Otherwise, you can get it for $23 on my website. This is 8 months, 10 months of work, even almost 160 pages, and more self-doubt than I can ever convey to you. But I'm finally proud of it, and I'm ready for it to be in the world. If you're interested, check it out using the link in the description below, and take the chance to sign up for my newsletter to get that discount and get the book if you're interested in it. We're having a great time on the newsletter, covering some fun stories, some great tips and tricks, and I'd just love to have you join. Now, to this point, I've mentioned a number of times what needs to go into the bag. So what is the bag itself? Well, this is the age-old photographer's question, and nobody seems to have the perfect answer of what the perfect bag is. And I don't either. But I do have a new bag that I've been using for a few weeks now that I'm absolutely convinced will be my adventure photography and landscape photography bag for short adventures. This is the Wotancraft Pilot 10-liter bag, and it is freaking awesome. I reached out to Wotancraft to see if they would send one of these out because I'd heard such good things, and even though it's a shoulder style bag, I believed it would give me the opportunity to use the gear I'm bringing with me more than a traditional bag where everything is packed on my back. I just don't tend to take bags off. I don't. While I'm moving, I don't like to stop. So this bag has allowed me to bring 2 extra lenses along with my, primary setup, and I'm finding I'm able to change my gear much easier with it. I also recently took it into probably the biggest downpour I've been in I'd say 3 years, and despite every single layer on me being soaked absolutely through, this bag kept everything out, and that actually genuinely surprised me. So that will be my go-to short adventure bag. As far as what I'll be taking with me on longer adventures, it's not a camera bag at all. I'll be piling my stuff into any version of a hyperlight mountain gear bag that suits the type of adventure I'm going on. Whether it's the Elevate 22 for a single day trip, the Prism for mountaineering adventures, or the Southwest pack for backpacking, it's going to be a hyperlight mountain gear bag for whatever adventure I go on. Traditionally, I use their camera pod, this guy right here, to carry one camera and lens setup on my chest, and yes, it does fit the Z8. So I'll be doing that, and then I just throw a couple other lenses in the bag, usually wrapped in a puffy or a pair of socks or mittens, something like that, even in the side where the water would go. This is just how I've always done it, and it's how I intend to keep doing it. You guys should have seen me carrying a 500mm f4 on the top of my Southwest, 40 miles in the Olympic wilderness to photograph bears. Everybody was asking whether it was a telescope, and that's just the way I roll. I don't really baby my stuff. I want it to be there, but I'm not going to overthink the process. I prefer to have a bag that's comfortable than trying to force a camera bag to work when it really doesn't. So the Wotancraft Pilot 10-liter is going to be my bag of choice for as long as I keep loving it, which I suspect will be quite a long time. Otherwise, Hyperlight is my go-to. Now, I don't often use filters. That's just the truth. I've never really liked the process of using filters, but this year that started to change. That's because I've been using the Freewell M2 Quick Swap magnetic filters. This isn't a plug for them. Although they did send me these, I'm no longer obligated to say anything for them. I just really like these, and I've been using them quite a lot. A magnetic system like this works for me because I don't have to go through the screwing process, and when I do have to screw a filter on or off, I'm not going to do it. I just never have. For probably 5 years of my photography career, I didn't use a lens more than once a year. Now I'm using them once a trip because they're easy enough to toss on and off, and this system has a circular polarizer, a couple of ND filters, and a UV filter, so I'm good to go. Toss it in the bag, doesn't weigh that much, and I'm happy. Those are going to be my filters for the year unless something better comes along, and I'm perfectly open to that possibility. But I don't really think much about filters, so I don't suspect I'll be replacing those anytime soon. Finally, a couple of odds and ends that I throw in my bag. One will be my Garmin InReach Mini 2, which I use for rescue scenarios, satellite messaging while I'm anywhere in the world. When I'm somewhere like Peru or Kyrgyzstan, which I hope to be going to this year, this becomes really, really important, not only to stay in touch with family, but also to make sure I have a contingency scenario, we'll say. Another item is going to be my Nightcore power banks. These are typically 20,000 milliamp, fairly large, but they actually sit quite small in the bag, and those help me stay powered. The big blue solar panel keeps things charged while I'm on multi-day or even week treks, and an assortment of cables will connect everything such that they can all stay powered. Now, one item I picked up this year that I really haven't quite used much, but plan to use a lot more this year, fingers crossed, is this really interesting one. This is a sea frog's underwater housing, and I can't speak to its quality. I've heard great things about it, right? It's not going to be a $4,000 one, so don't expect it to perform like a Nauticam, but it's excellent for the price is what I'm told, and I have always wanted to shoot underwater. So that, paired with my Fujifilm X-T5, will be my underwater kit, and I'm pretty excited to use that. Now you might ask, why is my Z8 not the camera going in the housing? And that's because the only housings I could find for the Z8 were out of my price range. It's just not an option for me right now, and I was able to get this for something like 500 bucks for the X-T5, and that makes it more accessible to me. I suspect the X-T5 will do great underwater, and the only thing keeping me from good images will be myself. So that is going to be something that hopefully gets used quite a lot this year. We'll see. We are planning to go to Australia this year, and I'd like to dive with some cool wildlife and just try to get some cool seascapes under the sea. I think that would be a really great way to expand what I'm, able to do with my photography. So I hope all of that gives you guys an idea of what my kit for the year is going to look like. This is a landscape photography kit, but it's also an adventure, lifestyle, travel, really anything kit. This is the kit I would use to capture anything. And it's the kit I will use to capture everything I see and every opportunity that presents itself. I'm ecstatic for the new year. There's lots of things I'd like to accomplish, stuff I absolutely neglected last year, and such big new dreams that have materialized with this next year in mind. So I hope you guys will enjoy coming with me on this, and it's going to be an exciting year. Now, one thing I wanted to bring up before I let this all end is this channel. This channel has been the best investment I've ever made, and it is a ton of work. 2025 is going to be a huge year for us. It's going to be so much fun to keep growing this channel, to keep finding new avenues to provide value to you guys. And my goal is to improve your experience dramatically. I'd love to know what you want to see from me in the new year. And just so that you know where I'd like to take this, my goal is to get away from gear focused stuff. It's great and it gets the most watches, and I want to keep doing it because I love gear, but I don't want to do it as often. I'd like to start doing more vlog style videos, stuff where we're in the field, we're spending more time outside, and just discussing photography education and stories, more importantly. Stories are why we take photos, and that's where I want my focus to be. So if you guys think that's interesting, let me know in the comments below. And if there's any other feedback, advice, suggestions you have, I'd love to hear them. Toss them down below. Thank you.